Have you ever stopped to think about where your feelings, really come from? Today, we're going to dive into the hidden world of our emotions. We'll look at how they get started from our very first moments, how we learn to deal with them, and what's actually going on just beneath the surface.
So let's start with a scene we've all witnessed, right? A toddler having a full-blown meltdown. You see it and you think, wow, they're just being difficult. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that tantrum is actually a window into a much, much deeper emotional world? A story that starts the second we're born.
Okay, let's go all the way back to the beginning. Picture a brand new baby. In that first month, their whole world is, well, it's pretty simple. Things are either good or they're bad. That's it. You've got pleasure when they're calm and happy, and you've got displeasure when they're upset. And believe it or not, these two super simple states are the foundation for every complex emotion we ever feel later in life. From that simple starting point, a much more complex world starts to emerge. Let's talk about the real building blocks of our emotional lives, what we call primary emotions. So what are these primary emotions? Well, think of them as the factory settings we're all born with. They're totally innate and universal. It doesn't matter where you're from, you've got them. They're hardwired directly into our brains for one reason: survival. You don't have to learn them, they're just there. They are our most direct, unfiltered gut reactions to the world. Researchers, guys like Paul Ekman, have identified 6 of these core emotions. You can see them right here: joy, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, and surprise. And here's the wild part. The faces we make for these emotions, they are the same everywhere. Studies have shown that even people in super remote cultures with no exposure to the outside world recognize them instantly. It's like our built-in universal human language. But of course, our emotional lives are way more complicated than just those 6 feelings. And that's because what we often show the world, well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And this iceberg image, it is perfect for what we're talking about. I want you to really picture this. All those feelings we show on the outside, maybe it's irritation or anxiety or just snapping at someone, that's the stuff you can see. That's the tip of the iceberg above the water. But the real powerful feeling that's driving all of that, maybe it's fear or deep sadness, that's the massive part of the iceberg hidden way down below. Okay, so here's the key difference. Primary emotions are your gut reactions, instant, innate. But secondary emotions, they're different. They are your reaction to your reaction. And these are not built in. We learn them as we grow up, from our families, from our culture. And a lot of the time, they act as a mask to cover up what we're really feeling deep down. This quote from the source material just nails it. Let's make it real. Imagine that when you were a little kid, every time you got angry, you got punished. You learned anger is bad. So now as an adult, the second you feel that little spark of anger, that primary emotion, bam, a wave of anxiety hits you. That anxiety is the secondary emotion, and its only job is to shut down the anger you were taught was unacceptable. Your anxiety is literally a mask for your anger. So as a kid's emotional world gets way more complex, the big challenge isn't just having feelings, it's learning what to do with them. And that, right there, is the huge challenge of emotional regulation. And we learn how to do this in stages. It's actually pretty cool. A tiny baby might just turn its head away if something's too much. Simple, right? Then they figure out self-soothing, sucking their thumb, holding onto a special blanket. A little later, they learn that crying gets a grown-up to come help. Or they might just try to run and hide. These are the very first tools in the emotional toolkit that we'll be building on for the rest of our lives. Okay, so we've seen what emotions develop and how we learn to cope. But this leads us to one of the biggest, oldest questions in all of science. Where do emotions even come from in the first place? Are they baked into our DNA, or do we learn them from the world around us? It's the classic showdown, nature versus nurture. And this whole debate really got its start with the man himself, Charles Darwin, way back in 1872. He was the one who first argued that our core emotional expressions weren't something we learned. Nope. He said they were inherited, passed down through generations because they helped our ancestors survive. That was basically ground zero for the nature side of the argument. So this argument split science into 2 big camps. In one corner, you have Team Nature, with what they call discrete theories. They follow Darwin, saying we have a handful of hardwired, universal emotions. But in the other corner, you've got Team Nurture, with dimensional theories. And they say, hold on a minute. They argue that emotions are built from our experiences, shaped by our culture and the words we use.
So, who wins, Team Nature or Team Nurture? Well, here's the plot twist. It was the wrong question all along. Modern science has shown us it's a false choice. The real answer is in something called epigenetics. And the big idea here is that our development is this incredible, constant dance between our genes and our environment. So it's not nature versus nurture. It's nature and nurture working together all the time. You can't pull them apart.
Okay, so if it's this complicated dance, what does that actually look like inside our heads? Let's go take a peek inside the brain and see how neuroscientists are trying to map this stuff out. Now, these brain scans totally bust a huge myth you might have heard. For a long time, we thought we could find, like, the fear part of the brain or the anger button. But when scientists looked at tons and tons of brain scans, they found out it's just not that simple. There is no single spot for any one emotion. It's all about the whole network firing together.
Yeah, sure, some parts are more involved than others. The amygdala, our brain's little smoke detector, it definitely gets busy when we're scared. And the insula, which is all about what's going on inside our bodies, is tied to disgust. But think of these regions like star players on a team. They don't win the game by themselves. They're involved in lots of different plays. It's the unique pattern of the whole team working together across the entire brain that creates the feeling we call fear or disgust.
All right, we've gone on a huge journey here, from a baby's first feelings all the way into the super complex wiring of the brain. So what's the bottom line? What does all this mean for you and me, just living our daily lives? It means that a lot of the stuff we struggle with every day, they're not the real problem. They're just the tip of the iceberg. You know that procrastination you can't shake? It's probably not laziness. It's probably a deep primary fear of failing. That reflex to blame someone else when things go wrong? That could be a mask for shame. These are what we call maladaptive responses, and honestly, they just keep us stuck.
But the good news is there's a much better way to handle things. Instead of covering up our real feelings, we can learn to respond to them in a healthy or adaptive way. This looks like learning how to calm ourselves down, being kind to ourselves when we mess up, and actually saying what we need in a clear, respectful way. And when we do that, the result is feeling way more calm, focused, and in control. And this is maybe the most important takeaway of all. It all begins with one thing: emotional awareness. The single most powerful first step you can take is to just pause. Pause and ask yourself, okay, what am I really feeling right now? Am I actually angry, or is it fear underneath? Am I frustrated, or is it sadness? Just recognizing and naming that primary emotion, that's the key that unlocks a healthier response. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time you feel that familiar spike of anxiety or that flash of irritation, I want you to stop for just a second. Try to look beneath the surface of the water. Ask yourself, what's the real feeling down there? What primary emotion might you be hiding? Thanks for joining me.